Okay, I think we're recording. Hello, my name is Matthew, and I am here with my good friend and booktube uh, colleague, Alan, from the Book Traveler.
Hi, Matthew. Hi, everybody.
And this is an experiment. We don't even know if this will be on YouTube, but we're gonna try. So good morning, or I guess good afternoon for you.
Yeah, it's afternoon. It's just after 2 p.m. here in the UK. So I've got my copy here of the House of the Seven Gables, and I've read the first 7 chapters, which I emailed and told you that I thought they were excellent. I really enjoyed Hawthorne's descriptions and his characterization, and the way he introduced the plot and the characters. I thought was excellent. And now I've read another 4 chapters. The 8th chapter was fine, I enjoyed it, but the following 3 chapters are all mostly about this one very weird and strange character called Clifford. And he is the least interesting character, in my opinion, of all the 4 or 5 characters that he's introduced. I would much rather be hearing about the other characters that he's introduced and who are so involved in the story. But he seems to have sidelined them in favour of concentrating those chapters from chapter 9 to 11, 9, 10, 11, concentrating on this very weird character called Clifford. I don't like it at all. I don't like Clifford, and I don't like the way he writes about him, and I just don't know. He's just gone off the boil, as far as I'm concerned. But,
I've read.
How far have you got into it so far?
I think I've read maybe four or 5 chapters, and I'm loving it. I'm nearly shocked by how good it is.
Yes, I agree with you. The first section which I read, I thought was excellent. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought this is great. This is excellent writing. And then, well, for me anyway, I mean, maybe you'll have some other take on it, but for me, the next section is just to me, he's gone off the boil and he's gone off on a tangent, which I don't like. I'm not enjoying this. I'm hoping. Well, I've got a feeling that it's going to get back to the other characters that I actually enjoy hearing about. There's supposed to be a love story involved between 2 of the characters, but the one character who I'm assuming this is the young girl's going to be in love with, he's been sidelined and is sort of off stage for these 3 chapters that I've read. So, and I'm hoping it's going to get back to that and make it more interesting. So I will bear with him until I get maybe to the final third of the novel, and then it maybe the interest will pick up again.
Yeah, hopefully it'll kind of tie together. Like, yeah, the hope is that he has a plan with what he's doing.
Yeah, I'm hoping he's got a plan. Yeah.
I love the atmosphere. Like the whole story reminds me of something that would be told over a fire. Like it's this ghost story, and there's that feeling of like mythology, like families that have history, and the family's past has an effect on the future. In this house that's built on top of basically a grave site, and it was built by the son. Son is like the father was murdered, and the son built the house.
Yeah, I agree with you. The atmosphere in the first 7 chapters is absolutely excellently written and creative, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was brilliant.
The scene, the few chapters, I guess maybe 2 chapters with Lady Hezbollah, is that her name? Where she's running the scent store, and so you're just like in the shop with this sort of like a corpse of a woman, and customers are coming in. Like the little boy comes in and gets the gingerbread man, and to me, like I find that so impressive that we're just sitting in a store, this empty store, and customers are coming in, and it's totally engrossing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. What's her name? Her name's Hepzibah.
Lady,
Hepzibah, her name is.
yeah.
Hepzibah, yeah. Yeah, but I thought to say was Hepzibah is 60 years old, but the way Hawthorne writes of her, it's like she's about 90. I mean, my wife is 60, but she's nothing like Hepzibah in the story, who sounds like she thinks she's a really old woman. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe in the 1850s or so, when this story was set, 60 was probably quite old. 100 years ago, if somebody was in their 60s or 70s, they were considered to be really old. But now they say that 70 is the new 50. But yeah, so my wife is 60, but she's still fairly agile, fairly fit.
I feel like life must have been a lot harder. There's a lot more blows than today. Like depending on people living, it's fairly easy going.
And of course, Hepzibah is impoverished. She's in her old age, and she's totally impoverished, and that's why she's had to open the shop in the house to try and get a few cents together to keep alive.
I liked the first two customers. She just gives the stuff away for free. Like I think the first person is a friend or something, and he asks for a biscuit, and she's like, "Just take the biscuit." And then the little kid comes in, and she's like, "I'm not going to take the change. I'm not going to take pocket change from a little kid."
Yeah.
Give it to the gingerbread man. And it's so great because you can tell, like, the kid leaves. It goes like, "Well, I have a bright idea."
Yeah, he goes back there to get some more, and then he thinks he's going to get more freebies, and then she actually says, "Where's the cents?"
Pump it up. I love that. Have you read anything else by Hawthorne?
No, I haven't, but I noticed on my bookshelf here, I've got this.
Okay.
Very nice book, titled. So I would like to read this as well, because I think he's writing in the short form. This is the short form. I think would be quite interesting. These are all sort of supernatural kind of stories, so we'll see. Yeah.
I read the Scarlet Letter in high school. I don't even know if I finished it, but I know it was assigned reading, and I hated it. I thought it was dreadful. To me, it was it was like it summed up everything that's terrible about old books. When you're a little kid and someone pulls out some old dusty book, it's like the most boring thing in the world. Like we're up in Boston, and they're Puritans, so I imagine them dressed up like pilgrims, and the way that it was taught, everything about it was bad. And reading this and reading The House of the Seven Gables, and thinking to myself, okay, clearly there was a disconnect between the book and wherever I was at the time, because now I want to go back and reread the Scarlet Letter and figure out, is it still boring, or is it going to be fantastic? And the funny thing to me is I imagine that it's going to be good. I imagine it's going to be a really good book. And I think it's just a hilarious irony that I could potentially make a video where I'm telling young people to read the book. Just like when teachers all over the world go, "No, this is great."
Well, I've seen the movie.
Okay.
The Scarlet Letter. That I seem to remember was quite interesting. I can't remember if it was fantastic or not. It was a long time ago, but I seem to remember that it was an interesting story. It's about a woman who's well, you know, the scarlet letter is A for adultery. But the thing that struck me is why she continued wearing this A. You know, she was a bit of a rebel anyway, but she just acquiesced in wearing this sign on her around her neck or something. I can't remember now. But so I thought that was rather weird and rather strange. But then that was the story. So, but it was quite an interesting story.
I remember in class in high school, we're all sitting in class, and the teacher is trying to just lob us all a softball and just asking the class, what is the letter? Which letter of the alphabet? Like, you could tell who hadn't read the book.
And what did you come up with? That's what I want to know. Hmm?
I knew it, but you see people shifted in their seats and coming up. Letter, was it the letter F?
No, that is what they did for it to be an A.
Are you reading anything else?
Yes, I'm reading. What am I reading? I'm reading a book. Mine's gone blank. It's by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I've got it. Rodney Stone, it's called.
So that's a Sherlock story.
No, it's not a Sherlock story. It's a historical novel.
Okay.
Set in the. It's set in the. Is it in the 18th or the 9th? I can't remember. I think it's in the 18th. So it's very good. I've now read in succession 4 of Doyle's. Well, I'm halfway through Rodney Stone, but this is my 4th historical novel by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I'm reading them in conjunction with my Chunksters Reading Challenge.
Right. Okay.
The first one I read, Sir Nigel, I thought was excellent. I really enjoyed it. But then I read The White Company, and oh my word, now it went downhill. Funny thing is, Sir Nigel is a prequel to The White Company. So if I'd have read The White Company first, I probably wouldn't have felt like reading Sir Nigel, because I was so what's the word?
Bored?
Pardon?
Bored?
Not bored, more just irritated, I suppose. I was irritated, but I'm going to explain it in my wrap up of these books. But no, it irritated me. So there were certain repetitive elements in The White Company that really annoyed and irritated me, which is why I rated it a lot lower than Sir Nigel. Then I read the third one that I'm reading. What's it called? I've forgotten now. My mind's going blank on this. I have to look it up. I read, The Refugees.
Okay.
Which is a really interesting story, and of the 3, it's the superior one of the 3, and it's about it's about an officer at the time of the Huguenots in France, and when they were expelled from France. So half of it is set in France, and the second half is set in Canada and in the US. Really interesting, thrilling story, really enjoyable. And also the one I'm reading now, one I just said, I forgot again already. Rodney Stone is also excellent as well.
Is this year the first time you've read novels by Doyle that were not Sherlock stories?
I read one other of his called Micah Clarke, but I can't remember anything about it because it's probably so long ago. But I still have it in my collection here. It's not that one. It's the one that's in the other room. But yeah, Michael Clarke is one I've read, but I can't remember what it was about now.
Does any of it compare to Sherlock, or is Sherlock clearly the most entertaining?
They are. I mean, I've read a wide range of stuff from Conan Doyle. I've got I think it's six volumes in one collection of short stories that are not Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
He's also written about a character called Professor Challenger, and these are sort of exploration type stories. But yeah, he's written a whole range of things other than Sherlock Holmes. But obviously, Sherlock Holmes is a unique character, and so he's most well known for Sherlock Holmes. But he has written a lot of other interesting material other than Sherlock Holmes.
I've known that he wrote a lot outside of the Sherlock Holmes series,
Yeah.
and I feel like one of the great pleasures of reading when you find an author that you really like, I have a sense, I think most people have a sense of wanting to figure out everything else they've written. And I feel like Conan Doyle is this really interesting case where he wrote one series that is so good that no one ever wants to leave it.
This is the problem. That is why he hated Sherlock Holmes in the end. He tried to kill him off. The public wouldn't let him, so he had to write more Sherlock Holmes stories. But he was sick of them. He actually rated his historical novels higher than the Sherlock Holmes stories. But what did he know? The public wanted Sherlock Holmes, not his historical. I mean, his historical novels were not as critically acclaimed. And I can understand it was based on The White Company, because that is the least interesting and least enjoyable of his novels. But the other three that I've been reading, I'm quite impressed and I'm finding them quite enjoyable. But so obviously, Sherlock Holmes is obviously something you can read again and again and enjoy them, all the time.
So I'm reading Tender is the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Have you read that?
I can't remember whether I've read it or not. I've read is it the Great Gatsby I've read, but I wasn't overly impressed with that novel. I know, a lot of people, particularly Americans, love Fitzgerald and the Great Gatsby, but it's not my cup of tea.
Okay.
I can't remember whether I've read. I don't think I've read that one actually. I think I read. Was it the Diamond as Big as the Ritz? I think is one of his. I think I may have read that. I can't remember. It was a long time ago if I did anyway.
That's a fun short story. I love, if I remember correctly, there's these two kids on a train, and they're bragging about their parents. And so the one kid's like, well, my parents have this great big house. The other kid goes, that's nothing. Because my parents have this gigantic mansion. And so they go back and forth until finally the little kid uses like the ultimate. And he goes, my parents have a diamond as big as the Ritz. It's a great little scene. And even though it's like fanciful, there's such a relatability with little kids like showboating about things they don't have.
There was actually, that reminds me. I think it was the Monty Python team. They did an amusing sketch in which they were describing their upbringing and the way they lived, and they were trying to outdo one another with how terrible their circumstances were. It's online, so you get an opportunity to look at that. It's really quite amusing.
Oh. That reminds me of the there's a scene just like that in Candide, Voltaire's Candide, where it's a whole group of characters that have a series of misadventures and tragedies are befalling them, and finally they've all just been gone through these terrible things, and they're sitting around and they just want to bide their time. So someone says like, well, why don't we each tell a story of how we got where we are? And so they're each going to tell a story more horrific than the next one. And so someone goes through and says like, you know, I was beaten and I was hanged, and someone goes, that was nothing, I've been disemboweled, and on and on and on until finally the last lady tells a story about how cannibals ate her ass.
Her what?
Cannibals.
Ate her ass.
They ate her ass. They all kind of go like, all right, you win this one. You know.
I read Candide, but I can't remember the way you describe it. I don't remember it being like that at all.
Okay.
It sounds really fascinating. When I read it, it was boring.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I wasn't impressed by it at all, but I'm not sure why now, because I can't remember anything about it. It was such a long time ago that I read it.
Huh.
Remember, I've had a very long reading career. I've been reading since I was 4 years old. So something like 70 years worth of reading. So I read a lot in my 20s. And I read an enormous amount in my 20s and 30s. So, you know, I've probably read everything that you've read and more over my lifetime. So a lot of the books I've read. Sorry?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I was going to say, most of the books I've read, I can't remember them. It was so long ago.
Have you've seen the video topic kind of bouncing around right now on being well read? So Lukash did a video on being well read. And,
yeah, I saw that. Yes.
And then several other people, David Murphy and Ami, and I saw Brian from Bookish and Steve. So do you have any thoughts on that at all?
Well, yes, I replied to Lukash, and I said to him that I have never, as far as I can remember, ever had the goal of wanting to be well read. It's not something that has ever crossed my mind as something that I should aspire to. I said, if I've read books of which I've read thousands, I've read several thousands in my lifetime. If I've actually accidentally read some books that make me well read, then that was by the way. You know, it wasn't something that I thought was a necessary goal to aspire to, but maybe some people think that's necessary. I think funny thing is, I think it's totally pretentious, Lukash, to aspire to be well read. It means you want to be superior to other people, and I've never felt that way. I just read to satisfy my curiosity and because I enjoy it, for enjoyment.
I think it's a really interesting topic, but one of my first thoughts, because I've in real life have had conversations like this come up, and like an observation that I can't help thinking about every time is it's always a conversation that either teenagers, 20-year-olds, maybe 30-year-olds want to have, but like 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, it never comes up. Like I've never had a conversation with someone in their 60s. The topic is, well, let's talk about being well read. Whereas like the amount of times I've been approached by someone like in their 20s that sees me reading a book and then wants to have a like a back and forth about who's more well read, like, and I don't think it's just a humorous observation. I think it comes down to like the goal is to read what you like,
Yeah.
and to know what you like. So one of the great things about the Western canon is like it's a big guidebook that can help you figure out what areas that you like to read. And they're supposed to be the Western canon is sort of the the books that are most widely agreed upon to be good. And the funny thing is, like in the videos, like romance novels kept getting derided. Like, you know, I'm well read. I'm not just reading romance novels. But the funny thing is, like, ultimately that's the goal. If you find out that you like romance novels, then you just read romance novels, right? Like that's all there is. You have to find your interests and then follow them.
I remember when I was in my 20s, I had a tremendous thirst and hunger for knowledge. I wanted to find out everything about everything. So I probably spent the next 10 years going to my public library. I used to take out 4 books every week on one topic. So 4 different authors on the same topic, so I could get a range of ideas from each one. And I spent 10 years just reading the wide range of topics. Obviously, I was also in my 30s was reading novels, you know, as you say, from the Western canon, probably. And I must tell you this amusing anecdote. I remember when I was about 17, I was cleaning someone's house at the time. And this woman, she said to me, funny thing is, I do not know how this topic came up, but she said to me, speaking about being well read, she said to me, "You're not well read until you've read Balzac." Well, the strange thing is, I couldn't ever bring myself to read Balzac after that. I never wanted to read. I thought, I'm never going to read Balzac as long as I live. Because she completely turned me off.
I've had that same exact conversation where I'm nearly accosted by somebody, and I hear the same exact thing. Like, I'm reading a book, and then all of a sudden I'm having a conversation, and someone will say, "Well, have you read Ulysses by James Joyce?" And depending on when it was asked, it was either no or yes. And if the answer is no, it's, well, that's the book you need to read. And then if the answer is yes, the answer is, well, that's the only book you need to read.
Well, that's ridiculous, isn't it?
It's just like I feel like it shows your limitations in your own curiosity. Like, you just want to read one book, and then what? You'll get all the illusions. You got fun. Like, I'll tell you something. My old friend Bob, when I was maybe 18 or 19 years old, Bob was like already in his late 60s, and I met him at a coffee shop, and we became really good friends. He's the person that turned me on to reading. He would talk about books, and he was always shocked and astonished that I didn't read. I didn't read for pleasure at all. And
shock horror.
Like, not only did he say like that you should, but the way that he talked about the books made them sound entertaining. So, you know, he was able to just with like his own enthusiasm convince me. Like, he would talk about David Copperfield or something, And then I would leave the conversation going like, man, I want to go to the bookstore and get this book. Like if it's as good as he's making it sound. But the reason I say all of that is he also told me, almost like a warning. He goes, you're not going to know anything until you're 40. He goes, until you're 40, like, he goes, just read your books, work on it, but don't have any expectations that you're going to know anything about life until you're 40. And that was when I was 19. Well, now I'm 37, and
and you still know nothing because you're not 40 yet.
Yeah, it turns out he was right. I don't know anything.
So I must know everything now.
Well,
It's not. You see, the one thing that I have learned is that you cannot read everything about everything, even no matter how hard you try. There's always going to be something that you haven't read. Even some of the most canonical and important volumes, you just won't have read them because you just haven't got time. There's only a certain amount of time and energy that you've got that you could devote to reading.
Yeah,
and the older you get, you have less energy to read. And I read quite a lot.
Reading more than any other pleasure activity or activity for entertainment is the most time consuming. So it's really easy to watch a new movie. It's 2 hours. You can watch a new movie, or a new television show is 30 minutes. But I mean, if you want to pick up a book, it could be an 8-hour, 10-hour, 20-hour commitment. And you have to make those decisions. Like I haven't read all of the plays by Shakespeare, and I'm not going to until I basically want to, because I don't want to.
To talk about Shakespeare, I'm actually working my way through Shakespeare. I'm now up to Measure for Measure, a play that I've never read. I've probably read, I think he's written about 37 or 38 plays, and I've probably read 31 or 2 of them. So there's still a handful I haven't read, and Measure for Measure is one that I've never got around to reading. But I'm reading it now, I'm halfway through it. And I must say, it's very interesting. I'm sorry I hadn't read it before because it's really quite fascinating. I'd heard that Measure for Measure was what is called a problem play. I don't know what the problem is because I'm not finding any problems with it. It seems okay to me.
I've heard that too. Do you know what that term means?
Well, yeah. I think it means if they're not quite sure whether it's a comedy or a tragedy, or whether it's a tragic comedy or a comic tragedy. Gotcha. They don't know how to classify it because of the way the material is handled. I've only read the first 3 acts so far, so there are 2 more acts to go. But so far, because it's about spoiler alert here. It's about a man who is condemned to die because he has impregnated his girlfriend. Can you imagine in today's society if everybody was going to be executed because they'd impregnated their girlfriends? There'd be no population left. But that's the story. Obviously, it's set in, I don't know, 1600 or whatever it is, 1600, in Vienna. So yeah, so it's an interesting premise. But I'll say I'm only 3/5 of the way through, so I'm not quite sure what the ultimate conclusion is. But quite fascinating so far, anyway.
I think we've been talking for maybe 20-30 minutes. Do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, if you want to. I'm happy to carry on, but if you want to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think that's a good amount of time. So I'm going to work on figuring out how to record, how to deal with the material as far as getting it onto YouTube. And if I can, I'll do it today, but I might need Wi-Fi, so I might have to take everything to work. So if I can get it up it'll be today or tomorrow. And if I can't, I'll email you. But I mean, either way, I think we had a great conversation.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Yeah,
So
I hope we covered some topics that will people will find interesting.
I think so. Yeah. So great. I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, Matthew.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye for now.